Hi, I am Kenneth Nicholson here at the CFDA offices with my friend Abrima. We're here chit-chatting to each other just to get inside each other's head for a second. Abrima, how did we meet?
I don't know. I feel like some of the best people that I've met, I can't quite remember. I think you remember. I feel like we met at the CFDA. The first,
Really?
it was not, I don't know how we met,
No,
honestly.
I
I think it was the
I
CFDA.
think it was via Zoom.
Yeah, we met, I think at the height of when we were all crying at the pandemic.
Yeah.
Beth Ann Hardison had organized the design hub, but it was like the first time that we were doing it virtually. And it was actually really emotional because everyone was
Mm,
going through something really deep.
mm,
And she was trying to get us to kind of like tell our stories, to reconnect, but also it was in the height of the Black Lives Matter movement
mm.
and right after what was going on with George Floyd. It's pretty deep.
Yeah.
I think that's when we met.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right. And I think I kind of remember it well. You were sitting outside, on the other side of the monitor, and you were just talking about, your introduction and your entry into fashion. And it was very emotional. But I do feel like instantly there was a sense of community, that kind of formed around that. And, luckily we still have that today. So, yeah. Very excited to be in conversation with you.
You too.
Thank you.
I'm glad to do this journey with you.
Sure.
Take us back to the beginning.
Okay.
What were you and what was your reaction when you found out that you won the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund or you were a finalist?
Um, I think I was on my way to the studio. I don't know, like, which felt very appropriate. So it was I believe it was definitely in the morning, and I was on my way to the studio in Los Angeles. And I just remember just being so appreciative of all the little moments because it wasn't just like I woke up and I found out. It was like I was actually going to, do the work that I had, just been really in love with doing since I was a kid. And also just recognizing the fullness of what it meant to be a finalist. The first time I heard the acronym CFDA, I probably I think I was in the 10th grade. And so it's something that I've always wanted. It's been a journey. Also, where were you when you found out that you were a finalist in the CFDA?
I was in Ghana. I did the application overnight, I think, or I remember my team, we were putting all the pieces together. It was a lot of pieces to the application. And I think, like you, I put a lot of heart into it. I actually never thought I was going to apply for the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund. I did do the CFDA Lexus Sustainability Competition, and that was an incredible journey, but I never really expected to do the Fashion Fund. When I found out, I was naturally just like overjoyed. I think it was a testament to all the work we had put in. I think it was a testament to all the collective work that we put in. I was really excited about the class that I could join. And it was a really good feeling for me. And I felt like it was a moment when I realized that we were at the start of another part of our journey, especially with the language, this language of like the future of fashion.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, I just felt like a new day was coming and it was on the horizon. And so but I was in Ghana, I was with my team, everyone was screaming, everyone was freaking out.
Yeah.
And to this day, it's been a really good journey.
That's amazing. I was also thinking about how, we're building a historical moment right now, so it's one of those moments that we'll be able to look back and be like, oh my gosh, this happened. And I can see how that connected to this movement and how that was, and I think it's just incredible. It's incredible.
It feels like a renaissance.
It
Feels
does.
like one of those moments in history when everything changed to me, and I feel like maybe to you.
Yeah.
When when was, I mean, hopefully this will never happen again, but when will this ever happen, right? It's a pandemic, it's this, it's that, like all like the convergence of all these things, and then all these brands that have been kind of working towards this moment, and
Yeah.
we kind of are here at this moment right now in this kind of energy.
Yeah.
And then to be able to do that together and to have like thought process around what we're doing and why we're doing it and who we're doing it for,
Mhm.
and using our platforms, it feels like a really good moment.
It does. Yeah, I'm so blessed and honored just to like be in this space and to really be amongst greatness, you know, like yourself and the other finalists. And it's amazing. I mean, like you know, New York City, CFDA, like we're in it, you know, getting to, you know, I'm thinking about people that have gone before us, like Crohn's Schooler, Public School, Aurora, Telfar. I mean, it goes on and on. And
Kenneth, was there a moment when you realized that you wanted to work in fashion? How did you know?
Well, I think now, so as I look back on my history, I think there were like small telltale signs. So like I was never really into sports, but when I found myself interested in sports, like the baseball team or like swim team, it was because of the accoutrements that came with the sport. So like the bag and the, you know, the sports bag and like the look of getting ready to go to practice. I mean, that's like a whole vibe and a look. And so I would want to participate just so that I could don like, you know, the shorts with the bags and the shoes and the socks. And I was like, okay, but I'm not really into the actual thing here. It's just this periphery sort of thing. And so I think that was a telltale sign. But then also just watching like things that really spoke to me growing up, like Calvin Klein. I mean, like those ads at the time, I was like, what's the big deal about? Because people were like, oh, they're so controversial, you know, and this and that. And I just thought it was like really cool. It was minimal, yet it was impactful, you know, like black and white imagery, like imagery of these, you know, models standing in front of a ladder, in front of a wooden wall. I mean, it was so sparse, but it was so like something that gripped me, you know, and it was also the way that you see how a creative mind works. So you had the set, but then you also have like the complementary, you know, logo and the typeface that they use and how everything just sung harmoniously together. And then you could actually put these garments on and wear them out in live, you know? So, you know, again, growing up watching this VH1 Love Fashion Awards with like, you know, Tom Ford and John Galliano, like being like pulled up from the ceiling. And I don't know, it was just the excitement around it. There was music, there was just joy. It seemed like a place that people came together for joy, and it seemed like a really creative space where you could just be yourself. And it was like the more the merrier. Like there was no right or wrong. It was just like, it felt like a place where you could like work, have a big party, and everybody was just happy to be there, you know? I love that. Yeah. So what was the moment that you felt like you wanted to enter and work into fashion?
So how did I know I wanted to work into fashion? Or how did I know I wanted to work in fashion? My journey was strange, which is the answer mostly to all the questions, probably. So my mom is from Mississippi. My dad is West African. So my mom's family and my family had moved from the South to Pittsburgh during the Great Migration, when Black people were looking for work in steel factories. And then my mom came to New York and was modeling for like Sears catalogs. Nice. And she became I actually have to give her more credit for the work. I mean, I know she did this in a time when this was not happening. I think she was one of the first airline stewards that were Black. I don't think I give her enough credit for her achievements. It's pretty incredible. And then her younger sister wanted to come and be a model as well. And so in the 60s, she came and went to Ford and tried to be a model. And they said, no, you're too dark. You're too African looking. You can't be a model. You can't sell product. And then she got a photographer to take her picture in 1967 that ended up in Sunday Times Style and Design. And in 1969, she ended up on the cover of Life magazine, spearheading like this Black is Beautiful movement. And her name is Naomi Sims, and became the first Black supermodel. So I ended up working in fashion because, one, I loved it. I started sketching when I was graduating high school, but then I did business. And I wanted to do kind of business and fashion together. And then when I studied in college, I went to Italy and I wanted to hear Italian, so I worked for Italian fashion companies. But what actually happened was that I remember the biggest thing I think is that when I watched what happened all those years before, which is the 60s, I saw like the power that fashion and images and creativity has to have change. Like things that really fascinate me are actions that can move the dial. Like even like religion fascinates me, you know, how much power it has to kind of engage communities towards some kind of like shared action that's good, you know, and fashion can do that, right? It can go either way, but it's very powerful, right? And it's like, I think it doesn't often get the credit it deserves in terms of its like level of power, which is why being at the CFDA, I think, is one of the reasons why it feels so important, because it really does, right? Like in terms of its like impact in business, in terms of the size of the industry. And so I think that I understood the reason I told the story about my aunt is that, you know, such a small, like I'm sure for her, it was a big but also small action. It was a photograph, but it was a photograph that launched all this stuff, right? Like it opened doors for other people. It changed your idea of who could buy and engage with product and consumerism. But I didn't really understand how to connect the dots. And I think that's where my personal life journey was. But I really understand that, like, if I'm talking about the 60s and what is it like? We're like 60 years later. And so for me, let's say it was like, I don't know, I was like in my 20s or something like that, thinking like, this was such a long time ago to me. And then on the other hand, I was looking at the industry and seeing that so much still needed to be changed, in the sense that I didn't see a lot of people that looked like a lot of different people in terms of diversity on the runways. It's obviously changed a lot now, but at the time, and I think that for me was the kicker. I know it was a long answer, but it didn't happen overnight. I think it was kind of trying to continue a story that had already begun in the 60s, which is why to me, this moment here and being all together in this room feels like a longer picture. That's why I love Beth Ann so much. It feels like a bigger story, and it feels like we're setting the stage for all those people that are gonna follow behind us.
Yeah, absolutely. You have family from Mississippi. I have family originally from Mobile, Alabama.
We're cousins. I know we're cousins.
and throughout, you know, Mississippi as well. But it's funny, the power of fashion, I totally agree. So as I mentioned, I was a kid in school, and, you know, I got severely bullied living in the South. You know, it wasn't pleasurable, it wasn't fun at all. And I remember flipping through these fashion magazines, and, you know, when you speak about the power of fashion and holding on to those images and knowing internally, like, the meaning that they had, it was a chance. There could be a chance out there for me to be creative and to be accepted, right? Even if I didn't feel like that within community at the time. And so I remember this little silver Calvin Klein lunchbox that came with maybe like the fragrance of the time. Maybe it was CK1 or something. And it was just this thing, and I just remember it. And so actually when I moved to LA, I ended up looking online for that, like on eBay, just to see if it was out there, and I found it. And so now it lives in my studio. And it really does speak to, you know, that little boy that kind of went through that process and came out on the other side, and now is in your company, and, you know, and is actually doing that dream. And when you talk about the power of fashion, it gives you something to believe in, to hold on to. So who were you paired with this year for your mentor?
I got Donna Karen. Donna Karen's my mentor. I actually had a really good conversation with her. I'm excited to spend more time with her. But she does something similar to what I do, or maybe I do something similar to what she does. I mean, she works a lot with artisans in Haiti. She has a lot of experience. But what I liked about Donna, and I was excited to have her as a mentor, is that I feel like she's done all the stages, right? Like, she's clearly very successful. She's had a woman's thriving business as a woman is like not the easiest thing, you know, like, and she's like nailed that, right? Her brand, but then in her second act, you know, doing what she loves, which is like empowering women, it seems like, you know, through Urban Zen, working with artisans, working with communities, working with people, movement, lifestyle. You know, I just feel like she's got all the pieces. And what I got out of my conversations with her and also the communication I have with her is a lot of encouragement. And I feel like a lot of kind of higher messages that are really important to sit with and to remember kind of the deeper reason as to why we do things, and to be kind of reminded that we're on this bigger path, and that, you know, this is important, but this isn't everything. You know, like, to stay true to yourself, to be authentic, you know, to really think about the person. I think the first question she asked me is, who are you designing for? Who's your customer? You know, and I can see that that's very top of mind when she works. And that was the feedback, you know, how does this fit? How does this move? What's the fabric we're using? why did you choose it? You know, like these kinds of questions. And I really appreciated that type of mentorship and the kind of questions she asked me and the directions that she pointed me to. Also staying more true to the, not that I don't, but to be reminded that it's good to stay true to the brand and to the spirit of what we're doing. So I found that I really appreciate Donna as a mentor, and I hope to be able to do more work with her going forward. Who is your mentor?
I was paired with Tom Calderian, who is amazing. He basically built the men's department at Barney's from the ground up, and now consults with Xenia. And
Huge.
yeah, he's amazing. He's so thorough. He has really opened my eyes to, you know, the mind of a buyer and, you know, things to consider when I'm merchandising, when I'm designing. He's introduced me to some amazing manufacturers out here in New York. Right now, everything gets made in LA, so I'm really looking forward to expanding, you know, beyond Los Angeles and into New York and eventually overseas. And so we just have these really great conversations about, you know, what are your long-term goals as a brand, you know, and if you do see that, you know, heritage legacy, how are you building that into the conversation now? So it's been incredible. Was I surprised by anyone? Like, everyone kind of has their rumored personality, but I just feel like everyone has been really nice and warm. I first met Madam Wintour online via Zoom, and it was amazing. It was just a really great atmosphere. Everyone was like smiley and happy, and it was very conversational because, you know, I deal with anxiety sometimes, and I just like push through, but it was just very nice. And also speaking with Mr. Tom Ford was just an amazing experience. Again, it's like, you know, the man behind like the great legacy of all this work. And yeah, also like, I don't know, but in my head, so I actually got a chance to speak with him briefly at the Met Gala, and I ran into him and I was like, hey, how's it going? I'm Kenneth and blah, blah, blah. And he's like a solid guy.
Yeah.
Like there's like some girth under there. Like he's like a solid man. So that was kind of like surprising, and I don't know. I mean, that's legit. Yeah, it was very casual. I was like, hey, how's it going? And he's like, hey, and I was like, whoa, Tom's working with something under there. So, yeah, any surprises?
You know, I wasn't surprised by the judges. I mean, I feel like we kind of expected, or based on the past and what we heard was happening. I was more, I don't know, like encouraged or comforted. I did enjoy the conversations though. Like I think Erwiah, who I know from before, the Fashion Fund, but I think that first opening kind of keynote that she did, she gave some really solid pieces of advice. And I think, I forgot what she said. She told us to really take advantage of this opportunity, right? And to that her favorite part of the fund was also being together. I really enjoyed that same conversation that I also had with Tom Ford and Anna Wintour. I think it was the one we were presenting our collection. I thought that it was, I think I was a little bit more stressed than probably I needed to be. But I thought that it was, they were really welcoming and really kind. And I think throughout the program have made it really clear that they know our work and that they're watching our work. I think everyone has done that. And I just feel like in general, it's like kind of a warm blanket. It feels very comforting, very positive, very encouraging. It's kind of sad to see it end.
I know, I'm trying to
I feel
think
like we
ways.
just got together. We've been like closed for months and we just started doing stuff together.
I'm trying to think like, how can we like make it stay? You know, that last bit of like, I don't want it to go.
The little always the best.
Right?
Always the best.
Yeah. What has been some jaw-dropping moments for you in your career as you are working it all out?
What have been jaw-dropping moments in my career? I think because I feel like we have a lot of blessings. I think we've had a lot of them, actually. I don't know if they're jaw-dropping, but I think they're blessings. I don't know. I think this one right here, I don't know. I think the CFDA Sustainable Lexus Initiative, that was a really important moment for us. I think it was a moment where we kind of shifted. I think maybe one of the most significant moments in my career at Studio 189 was our fashion show. You know, we had all of our best friends and people have supported us since the beginning in the room. We had, you know, hand painted the backdrop with all the symbolism, tracing the journey between Africa and America and the freedom blankets. And we were telling this like large story, and you could really just feel all the elements coming together, mixed prints and patterns and colors and, you know, custom music and performances, dancers. And it just kind of felt like this heavy moment. And then the electricity was coming from the models, and it was coming from the audience, and it was coming from the staff. So it was heavy, you know, like in a great way. Yeah. And then, you know, what gives me joy is that moment, one, when you can just feel that energy kind of like carry you, that's lifting. And then the second is when you get the post part, when somebody lets us know that we've really had impact. Like, to me, impact is what matters. Have you had any jaw-dropping moments in your fashion career?
I think every single time I get an inquiry from a stylist to pull now, every time I get an email or, you know, some sort of, you know, project or proposition from the CFDA, it's like, that was, I don't know, like, that I could be plugged in with. And it just so happens that, you know, I'm best plugged in with all these amazing people. And so it's like, you suffer a little bit, but after a while, it's like, this is where you fit. And it's like, this is pretty awesome. And I think it makes the journey so worthwhile.
We got to talk about your med table, though.
Of course. Like, that was so huge. That was so huge. And I saw you. I feel like every time we're in the same room, I'm always like, you know, but that was so great. Working with Law and dressing Lewis Hamilton for the Met Gala was just so surreal from start to finish, from getting, you know, the call to the actual execution over, you know, the course of 24 hours, which took place literally the day after our latest presentation. And so that was really amazing. And just seeing all of the energy, you know, on like just a few select floors of the Plaza Hotel, just like buzzing. Like, if it had like a clear, like, I don't know, like a clear plexiglass frame in front of the building, it would look like an ant farm of just like stylists and racks of clothes and designers and talent and, you know, crew. It was amazing. It was like, I was describing it, well, the actual Met, I was describing like a fever dream, you know, but I don't know, it just seemed like everyone that you always just adored, you know, whether it was like style or their, you know, contributions to creativity or anything. It was just so amazing.
I just feel like we're so happy to be here.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds really corny. I feel like we've said it a few times, but it's there's not like one thing, right? Like, everything is so good. I mean, obviously there's so much bad. I don't just mean here, I mean in general, there's a lot of bad and there's a lot of heavy. But, you know, but then there's a light at the end of that, and then there's good, and there's positive, and there's energy, and there's well wishes and support and encouragement, and like, you know, and I feel like that's why we keep saying, like, we're blessed, right? Yeah. Like, it's hard to not recognize those blessings because not everybody has them, right? And so, like, every time we have them, whether it's somebody just doing a stylist pull, like you said, which is a big deal, they don't have to pull you, they can pull somebody else.
It's the string of experiences, and each little pendant, you know, is meaningful, and they make up this whole beautiful experience. And so,
is there one thing that you wish you knew now when you were first starting your business?
For me, I had to balance taking advice and following my own voice. So I think there was this thing that I wanted to do, but then I would hear things like, oh, well, you know, you have to be commercially sound, which means you have to, you know, simplify things, or don't do this because the market's not ready for that, or the buyer isn't ready for that. And it's, well, you know, as I went on, I'm like, well, I'm the market, I'm the buyer, you know, and if it makes sense to me, then chances are there'll be other people that connect with it. And while I do think that traditional consideration is very, very valid, I think we're also in a space right now where we have the excitement of like doing something that's completely new, because our world has, you know, recalibrated several times, like artistically and generationally and politically. It's, you know, like several times over within the last probably 10 years. And so I think what was necessarily just like fundamental, education of how to enter into the market, how to launch a line. I don't know if that really exists right now because everything's so new. I mean, everything.
What do I wish I knew that I didn't know before? We had one of those calls with the CFDA and Vogue on Zoom when there was a financial one, and it was about raising money.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like there was maybe two things that I would say from that. So one is, I guess I knew, but I didn't maybe have, I don't know, confidence or something. There's a word in there that I don't have.
I think that's one of the another benefit of like being in an initiative like this with the CFDA. It's like you really do learn, and like I know for me, it's like when you step into those new spaces and the financial conversations come up, it's just a very matter of fact thing. And so the way that I've read those experiences is it's elevating my consciousness, and so it's not anything to be intimidated by. It's just a thing of business.
Yeah.
I know if that makes sense.
It does make sense. The second thing that I would say is, if I was giving advice to somebody else and to myself before, is not to sacrifice yourself. I think when you're doing an entrepreneurship job, and also when you are doing something that's rooted in people, so ours is like human-centric design, sustainability, we work with communities. But I think that if I were giving myself advice, when I first started, and I to go back, is like the importance of also taking more time for yourself, especially if you want to be in service to other people. That's what I would do.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's beautiful.